Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan. Inside the Birds, we're taking you inside the visits, the 30 visits going on at the NovaCare complex, the players who have been visiting the Philadelphia Eagles as we get very close to next Thursday's first round of the NFL draft. And Adam, you always know that we're getting closer because the questions, the interest starts to peak, and we had a great Ask Greg Cosell session for our Patreon members on Tuesday night. The shortened version will be up on the platform sometime today, we hope. But the point is, the questions get really good. The interactions get good. People are starting to get really excited about this NFL draft. That's why we go inside these visits, to really give people an idea of where these prospects fit, what they're made of, what they're finding out, what the question marks are. We did DNs and D tackles and edge rushers in the last one who visited the Eagles. And then in this episode, we're going to do offensive linemen, and we'll get into some other players as well. But yeah, the questions for Greg are great, and the interactions, you can tell people are getting ready.
Yeah, no doubt. In fact, I hope our newest member, Chris T, not Chris T. Jones, Chris T. For those of you old enough who grew up in Philly, might remember Chris T. Jones. Yes.
I remember him well.
Too many injuries, but very talented receiver. Did he go to Miami?
I believe he did.
We're not looking it up. I think he did. But when we started the Patreon a couple years ago, we just wanted to deal with a lot of people who really love football. Obviously, they're Eagles fans, but really smart people and want to be better. They want to be smarter. They came in smart, but they want to be smarter. So it's been great. And Greg, pretty much, look, there are very few questions that are off limits, but he's also going to say, listen, there's certain. He doesn't do lists. He doesn't do rankings. He just goes by tape. This is what the tape shows us. But the cool thing is when we're doing it with them, we could fill in the blanks sometimes because we know about the character stuff. We talk to scouts who don't always agree with Greg. That's okay. He always says reasonable minds could disagree. Mm-hmm. And I did ask him, does he go back when he's just off on a player? And he goes, yes, he does go back. But as we all know, coaching matters. And sometimes players go to a situation where they had a great college career and the club didn't have a good plan for them, or the coach staff gets fired and the new staff doesn't like the player, whatever the case may be, they don't turn out to be what you thought they were. So it works both ways.
Absolutely. And NFL personnel people do that all the time as well. They go back and look for the gaps in their own reports. In fact, John DiFilippo is on our Patreon platform, has told us many times about Patrick Mahomes being one of the guys that sent him back to the tape and where he missed on that. So yeah, that's always fun. And that's why scouting is not an exact science, but we do the best we can. And Greg is one of the best, for someone who did not play or coach or be a NFL personnel man, one of the best that you can learn from, because he learned from all those people who are in the NFL. Let's talk about a quick move the Eagles made earlier a couple of days ago. Adam, they signed another wide receiver off the scrap heap, Terrace Marshall. A guy who was drafted top 60 by the Panthers, didn't work out, floated around. I think he was with the Raiders, but he was also with the 49ers at one point. He didn't play for them, I don't think. He might have been practice squad. But here's a guy who, was once thought of, speaking of the scouting process, right, as a guy who had pretty good potential coming out of LSU. And whether it's scheme, player, coaching, whatever, it just hasn't worked out for him. So the Eagles are throwing a dart here.
Yeah, totally. Here's what we're told with Marshall. He had first couple. By the way, he was a second rounder coming out of LSU. Played obviously with Justin Jefferson. He was a second rounder. Good. He's over 6'2". He can play inside, but he's not a slot receiver. Like, he's kind of like, how Devontae Smith. His inside numbers are really good. But he's really not a slot receiver, but he can line up inside. Marshall has shown the ability to line up side, but again, he's an outside receiver. That's how teams see him. So basically, what we're told is this with our Panther source. They had high expectations, runs pretty well, good size, had some really good tape from LSU. And unfortunately, a couple nagging injuries in his first couple of years. Passive player, didn't really apply himself. needed to be coached hard, underachiever. He's now with his fourth team. You mentioned the Niners, the Raiders. Yeah, he was with the practice squad of the Niners and Raiders. It never worked out. And he signed a 1-year deal with the Eagles. And he's going to get a chance here. You got a real chance to make this team as of now, even out of the draft yet. But this guy was a second-round pick who could run. I mean, he's over 6'2". He just and he's more of a run after the catch receiver, I was told, based on how the Panthers at that time when they drafted him felt that he did in practice and in the games. And he had some big catches in his second year. Whereas not that he put up great production, he only had 28 catches, but he had a couple of big plays. So you know what, guys, sometimes they need to change the scenery. And he's now with his fourth team. He's been humbled. He's been cut, a bunch of times. And it's just an opportunity here, and he will get an opportunity, no question.
Yeah, he will get an opportunity. And you mentioned there's an opportunity to make the team because after Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, what are you looking at on the depth chart? Jahan Dotson will be most likely with the team. I can't imagine him not being, but that's just 3. You typically keep 4, 5, 6. And yes, they drafted Johnny Wilson. Yes, they drafted Anais Smith, but that doesn't automatically mean they're going to make the team in year 2. I would still say it's an uphill battle for Terrace Marshall. He's got to actually live up to it. But those guys like Smith and Wilson and whoever else is vying for that, they're going to go to camp, right? And they're going to see Marshall. And the first thing they will notice about him is that guy is a fluid mover. He's fast. You're right. He was a run after the catch guy. And that's why I think people thought he would project well to the slot, even if he's not. But he had some really nice tape, as you mentioned. So I'm sure that will jump out. Now, when the pads come on and the competition comes on, that's where it really gets settled. But I'm sure those guys will notice that the natural talent that Terrace Marshall has.
Yeah, I mean, athletic numbers are really good. Vertical's good. Broad jump is good. He arm length is good for a receiver. Nia Smith is only an inside receiver. Johnny Wilson really only blocked last season. We call him the blocking receiver.
Yep.
Yeah, Eagles are super light on the outside of receiver, so he's going to have a legit chance as of now to push, but he's got to get through. He's got to get through OTAs first, so he's got to show something.
There you go. All right, let's get into our pre-draft visit intel. We're going to go heavy on offensive line and in the secondary. Let's start with the offensive line. This is a position, Adam, that the Eagles pretty much every year bring in like 4 to 5 to 6 offensive line prospects because A, they prioritize the position, and B, they're more willing than some to just draft ahead. And there are a lot of pretty good offensive linemen in this year's draft. So let's start with a guy like Dylan Fairchild, an interior offensive lineman out of Georgia.
Obviously the Eagles know this school really, really well after ignoring it for decades. Like this is their school du jour. Yeah. And they've had a lot of luck with it. So yeah, it is, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here with this position, the guard position, because there's certain measurables you look at guard. Now, but the Eagles, what I find interesting about the Eagles is they don't care if a guy's 6'6". They'll move him inside. Fairchild, by the way, 6'5.25", 318, arm length at 33. He's built like a guard. He's going to play guard, and I'll give you an idea of kind of the round in a minute where I believe he's going to go. But you're right in that when they bring a lot of line, whether they draft some, they also bring in a number of undrafted free agents in. So yeah, it becomes by the end of it 6 of them, somewhere around that number that they're going to have in training camp, and they're always looking for somebody to make it. But now, I would think some teams, because he's over 6'5", could look him as a right tackle, but everything I've heard, he's going to play guard at the next level.
I wonder if also the athletic testing, I mean, he was second among all guards in athletic testing score. I wonder if that might make people think he has right tackle, or no, guard/right tackle, availability. It's always good, like to bring a guy like this, if you project him at guard, but if you think like that he could play tackle, I mean, this is how the Eagles viewed at one point Jack Driscoll. They had him starting off his career at tackle. We were told when they drafted him, they actually thought he was more athletic to play guard but because of his athleticism, he could play tackle. He did. He wound up playing both in his career. So that could just be a feather in the cap for a guy like Fairchild, more so than you can play two positions. It's more like we see you at one, but we think you could, if needed, play the other.
Yeah, his arm length is almost certain to put him at guard. He's got 33-inch arms. It's not a lock, but he's built like a guard. With Stoutland, of course, look, he did something that nobody saw. Mekhi Becton as a guard. I mean, it was kind of laughed at, to be honest with you, and Eagles got the last laugh. It turned out to be a great decision by Stout. But it's just funny how things work out. But yeah, Fairchild, and looking at the list, and we'll add to these next week, although they're done this week. But if we get more of them past today's show, we'll give them to you. But looking at it, the Eagles have split up guards and tackles. It seems like so far that's kind of the way they're looking at it of their visits.
Right. I get the sense this is a day 3 guy, or maybe.
Yeah. He's I'm seeing rounds 3 through 5 is what I'm thinking.
Okay. Donovan Jackson's the next guy we're going to talk about at Ohio State. Now, he had an interesting year at Ohio State, Adam. They had an injury to Josh Simmons, right, who's one of the better offensive tackle prospects in this draft. And then they had another injury at tackle, and they just had to move Jackson outside because they were running out of options. And it hurt them so much they won the national championship. So Donovan Jackson, his film, I already knew this, but I've talked to some people about it. It's tough on the film because you almost have to watch it knowing that he's a guard, not a tackle, even though he had a lot of tackle film this past year at Ohio State.
Yeah, he did it out of necessity because of the injury, right? No, he's a guard, and he's probably going to go in the second round. He's a really good football player.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, knowing the Eagles' history, I mean, the smart bet at 32, if they stay there, would be an offensive lineman or defensive lineman. That's just what they do. Not only what they do, but what they how they like to build their team through the lines. Man, this we've been talking about the last couple of months. Everything we continue to hear is not a great draft. You might have 10 to 12 true first round grades. Clearly, anyone you're drafting in the 20s has a second round grade, but you got to 32 players have to go off the board in the first round. You can't not make the pick. You can't pull a Mike. I
was going to say you could. Yeah, you can pull
try and get lucky with Kevin Williams, but yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to take a chance. But yeah, overall, Jackson's he's a highly rated guy, and this is the kind of guy that I could certainly see the Eagles liking. But for the future, see, I look at it this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have, as of now, we've got the competition at right guard between Steen and Kenyon Green. This is Steen's third year, and Green, wants to prove himself here. So, do they really need another guard? Or do they see Jackson with the ability to play right tackle? Aha! Lane Johnson's potential replacement.
Yeah. What's the size and length on? Again, he played tackle out of necessity. Does he have the arm length to be able to be a tackle in the NFL?
I'm looking at. Oh wait. Yeah, you got to be.
Go ahead.
You got to be over 33 to play tackle, right or left. Well, really, right. 6'3" and 5/8. 6'4" is really generally the cutoff line, but okay.
Yeah.
A 33 and a half, but his wingspan is really good. Wow. 83 and 3/4. That is really long. That's interesting.
That is long. I mean, I think I agree with you on that. I mean, there's a chance that you can view this guy as a versatile guy who could play both positions. I mean, again, his film at tackle is okay. I mean, they won the national championship. He wasn't as much of a liability, but that really isn't the position they envisioned him at. So, but he will be a late first, round 2 type of guy.
Yeah,
I think he would be right in the mix at right guard for the Eagles, if not the lead candidate, if they took him at 32.
The thing is, though, I would bet $1,000 there's no way in hell they're taking a guard. Just a guy could only play guard at 32. It's just not. I just don't see it at this point.
It would have to project. To your point on the wingspan.
Play both.
Right.
Got to play both. a lot of teams think that way anyway, but especially the Eagles now. Even I mean, if you look at all of their backups, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keegan getting cross-trained at both guard spots. Who knows? He might be able to play. I think Andrew might have said like in the spring he might have been able to play center.
Mm-hmm.
Darren Kennard is a multi-positional player. Now Kenyon Green right now is a right guard. He could play either guard spot. What I'm saying is you can't just be. You could play both guard spots, but if you can only do one guard spot, you're going to be down the line. I mean, way down the line. You got to be able to show it, and they're just really big. One of the values that Geoff Stoutland brings of many is he gives you such value as an evaluator. Hey, I'll take this guy. I think we could work with this guy. Where other teams, nope, doesn't meet this, all the criteria. We don't want him. Stout might take him, and the guy becomes a player.
There you go. All right, so moving on, the Eagles have also had a visit with Marcus Embo, not to be confused with Armand Membu from I think Missouri, who's going to be a top guy. But yeah, Marcus Embo out of Purdue, who does have that versatility that we've at least in college, he showed it playing guard and right tackle.
Yeah, here's the problem: arm length 32. It's wingspan good at 80, and big hands at 10.5. 6'4" and 1/8. Yeah, boy, that arm length at 32 is not good. It sounds so funny. It seems kind of absurd. So you mean to tell me he's 1.5 inches short to play right tackle? Yes, we're telling you that.
Yeah.
At the NFL level. At the NFL level, you can get away with it in college because fractions matter, man. And it's just the way that coaches think. And even with Stout, I just don't see it.
Yeah. Go ask Joe Tooney. I mean, this guy is an incredible left guard. He has been in the league for years. They had to move him to left tackle. He did as best he could, but as soon as he went up against long-limbed Josh Sweat, it was over. He could never get his hands on Josh Sweat.
Sweaty's
right into his chest every single snap, and there was nothing Tooney could do about it.
Tooney played left tackle in college, but yeah, he was out of boy. That I wonder. I know he's an older player. I get that, but I wonder if they were so alarmed at what happened. It reminded me. I got to tell you. For those of you who remember when Reggie White, who did he send off their? Might have been was it Max Lane in the Super Bowl with New England? He sent a guy off his feet. He just did the hump move and took the guy off his feet.
Yeah, I mean,
Tooney was off his feet.
A lot of people. Yeah.
He was off his feet, and I wonder if they felt like alarmed by it. Playing out of position, of course, it's not its natural position at this point, but interesting, nevertheless.
Yeah, but it just goes to show you, like, you can have all the talent in the world. If a guy at this position, to your point, if your defender is able to get his hands into your chest before you can, you are automatically at a loss because you are taking a backwards set, which means your balance needs to help. You need to get that forward in your hands into the chest of the defender. If you're already going backwards and long arms are pushing you further back, you're going to get put on your ass, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's very difficult, and that's why arm length really does come into play there.
Yep. So Embo is a guard for sure. Maybe there's a team or two who think he could play right tackle, but at 32, it's pretty hard grading, man. I'd be surprised if he plays right tackle the next level. Now, one thing I do want to mention, and Belichick missed on this one. Remember Isaiah Wynn, who was a first-round pick?
Yes.
He thought he could play left tackle. He was so short. He was under 6'4". That just he bounced around with a doll. They eventually moved him to guard, but that was just a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
That you got to be careful. Inches matter, fractions matter for sure.
Sure. All right, the next guy, interestingly, Andrew DeCecco had already written about, and this is an developmental guy, an offensive tackle out of Iowa State named Jalen Travis. And DeCecco mentioned this guy as someone the Eagles would probably want to take a look at. They are. Obviously, Adam, as you know, Nick Sirianni and the Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell are pretty close, so they get a lot of intel on the Iowa State guys. And Jalen Travis, his size makes him a very interesting prospect. He's 6'8", 330.
He's a monster. 6'7", 3/4.
Yep.
340. 34 7/8 arm length. hands huge, bench 26.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give him credit. He did everything at the combine to help himself.
Sure.
Vert for a guy, I'll tell you what, for a 35-inch vert for a guy that big is not bad. Look, he's a third-day pick. Now, I can't imagine. We learned our lesson with your note that you had last spring about Becton. It went up being true, which no one around the league thought was true. They thought it was ridiculous, but Stout knows. I wonder if the Eagles draft him, if Stout say, you know what, I think we're going to move him to guard. He thinks he can play guard. Can you imagine? The guy this big.
I mean, he'd have to be like some pretty incredible athlete. And I get it that he tested well, but I can't see that one.
That would be interesting. Would be interesting. I could see him going as early as the third round.
Yeah,
he is which would be a second-day pick, but I'm fascinated to see where there's some O-line coaches we know around the NFL. We're gonna look into a little bit further. He's one player that I want to get a good feel for. Could he start year one? Is he too much of a project? But you can't cheat size. His size is just absolutely absurd. Obviously, one of the biggest players for this draft.
Yeah, weren't there a couple of guys last year from this isn't a small school, but developmental guys that had great size? There was one kid from Maryland whose name escapes me. I think he was
Gottlieb Ayadze.
Oh, yeah. Wait, did the Eagles sign him?
They did, and then I believe Washington seemed to be infatuated with him. I had heard that Washington wanted him.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there was the Bears drafted the Yale kid who was ginormous.
He got hurt. Yeah.
Right.
Amajide, yeah, he got hurt. Yeah, he got hurt.
Right. He was another really long, big, athletic guy. Yeah.
Well, actually, he might have had long arms. Yes, but he might have been. Was he 6'4" only though? Like that?
I don't. I just remember we were talking about his arm length like it was superhuman or something like that. He was, and that even though he went to Yale, he was like a legit prospect.
I wonder if there's ever been a lineman with 36-inch arms. Just curious.
A offensive tackle with 36
Oh my God. Wait a minute. This is crazy. I did not know this. Truth be told, I just happened to look at this. 36 and an eighth for Majide, the Yale left tackle last year. Oh no, he's tall. No, I was wrong. He's 6'5" and 3/8. Okay.
So he's got good size.
Oh my God. But 36 and I've never heard of that before. It's just insanity. Wow.
Yeah. Well, this
Johnny
kid
Wilson, by the way, real quick, Johnny Wilson, 35 and 3/8 arms.
Well, he's a really tall, long dude.
He's the block. That's why he blocks.
That's why he blocks. Yeah. The kid Travis that we were talking about, you said help himself with the combine. He did go to the Senior Bowl, so that was good for him too to get a showcase there. He was all Big 12 honorable mention. Check out if you guys want to Google it. Andrew DeCecco, he wrote about him. Jalen Travis, Google or go to Inside the Birds. You can probably find the search bar InsideTheBirds.com there. Andrew's been doing a great job on his big board stuff too on the DeCecco Daily. Hope everybody's can check it out.
Yeah, you could hear him. Yeah, exactly. You could hear him break it down very quick. Yeah, he does it very quickly. It's not like an hour. It's like 10, 15 minutes.
Yep.
This is an interesting.
Go ahead.
This is an interesting draft class at tackle. You talk to people. There's something they find something. There's something like a lot of guys are tall, but there's something wrong. Like there's an issue with a lot of these players. Like they don't like something about them. But this kid is a better athlete than you think. He's Jalen Travis we're talking about. There's a lot there. There's a lot there with him. But then the next kid we're going to talk about is definitely a sleeper.
Yes, that is the William and Mary offensive tackle Charlie Grant, who's had quite a lot of visits. I mean, he's obviously I believe he visited with the Eagles last week. He was with the Titans, with the Ravens, with the Bengals, the Texans. So there's a lot of interest in him, despite his small school pedigree at William and Mary.
Yeah, when you're getting a lot of visits or a lot of buzz late, that means though you went to a very small school, there's something scouts like about him.
Mm-hmm.
He also got good length at 34 3/4.
Mm-hmm.
He's an interesting developmental tackle. He's going to get drafted. The question is, how do you project him to the next level?
Right.
Because that to me is going to be the question is, okay, where are you lining him up? He's got the arm length at 34 3/4. That's really good. Hands are good, 10 1/4.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's a low. It's harder sometimes with tackle when you come from a very small school against lower level competition, because typically these guys aren't going to get tested very much because usually the pass rushers they go against aren't very good. Because this is a huge step up for him, so I'm curious to see where he goes.
At 6'5" and 311, he could be guard. That could be guard.
Oh yeah, well 6'4" and 7/8 is true height.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that if anything, they might view him as having that sort of guard right tackle ability. You know, like you said, he'll be a later round pick, but if you got something there, maybe you find out he can be a starter down the road or a really good player who's versatile, gives you, if not a swing tackle or a swing guard tackle, he might become a starter. You never know. But
yeah,
I like both positions. I like the fact that he can project to play both. He has the size.
Yes, and if you're willing to be patient, this is on your point as a developmental prospect. If you're willing to wait till year 3, you know, he probably won't dress year 1, depending where he go, what team he goes with, and you hope he becomes a swing tackle year 2, and maybe compete for starting job in year 3, which is typical of a day 3 guy.
Right. All right, next guy out of Oregon, Josh Connerly, offensive tackle, played tackle there. Pretty good athlete too. If I'm not mistaken, he tested fairly well at the combine.
Yeah, Connerly to me will play guard and tackle. That's the way teams will look at him. He's under 6'5", 6'4", and 5/8. Arm length at 33 1/2, which is okay. He's a pretty good athlete. He's a guy a lot of teams like. He's a top 40 pick. He's the kind of guy I would not surprise me at all if the Eagles took him at 32. If they stay there, and if he's the best player available, it makes a ton of sense to me at 32.
Because so you don't think they would take Donovan Jackson unless they believe Jackson could also play tackle. Connerly, you feel better about could play guard and tackle.
Right. I mean, it's one thing you got to have if you're going to be drafted in the first round. I mean, look, Landon Dickerson could play center. He could play guard, right? He could play either guard spot. It doesn't really matter. It's hard to take a guy in the first round, albeit at 32, on an offensive line, unless he's a left tackle. Unless the guy's 6'6", 320, 315, and 34 and a half inch arms. He's a left tackle. There you go. It's over. You don't even play any other positions. But when you're don't have the ideal measurables, you're going to have to show that you can do other things.
Yeah, he ran a 5.05 which isn't bad for a guy who's 310 pounds. So one of the better testers at the combine. So that would be Josh Connerly. And then last we'll talk about is Anthony Belton out of North Carolina State.
Yeah, Belton's another day 3 guy. He's long at 6'6". In terms of height. Arm length is under 34, 33 and 7/8. Wingspan's good at over 83. The testing numbers of the combine were nothing to write home about at all. But obviously there's something they like about his tape. I know that some people around the league think he could play guard. He may project athletically to play guard, to be honest with you, though he's tall. And again, this is a day 3 pick. And honestly, when you look at the Eagles' depth on the offensive line for the future and what developmental guys that they have, there's, even if they don't draft one in the first 2 rounds, I mean, really, when you look at it, Kendall Lamb's on a 1-year deal. Kenyon Green is now in year 4?
Yes. Forgot about Kendall Lamb.
3, 4, 5, right? So, so he's on the last year of his rookie deal. If he doesn't win the starting job, he'll be on the last year of his deal. They brought Matt Pryor back. I forgot about him. He's on a 1-year deal. Darian Kennard is on the last year of his deal. Keegan is in the second year, but he just didn't contribute last year. Kendall Lamb's on a 1-year deal. They need developmental offensive linemen. This is a perfect guy to take a look at.
Yeah, and remember they lost one too that they had in Dylan McMahon. Now he was an interior guy, a center, but he is on the Rams now, and he was a guy that they drafted last year. So that is the look at the offensive linemen that we know about. visiting the Eagles, the 30 visits. And we'll get into the cornerbacks in a second. First, I have to confirm this rumor with you, Adam. Is it true that a Super Bowl champion quarterback is a big friend of our friends at Stretch Zone?
Yeah, actually, I met Drew 2 years ago. He loves Stretch Zone. He actually owns, I think, some, and he knew the guy who owns the ones in Philly. He knew the franchisee was. So yeah, he explained to me why he loved it so much, because any NFL player knows you get stretched for a game. If you go to watch warm-ups, they're getting stretched by the trainers in the field. So the bottom line is, folks, why did we partner up with Stretch Zone? Because you and I know that the value of stretching. Let's get right into it. 30-minute stretch, the energy that you get. We talked about this on the last time. We talked about Stretch Zone. The energy that you get, whether you're doing sports like me, tennis, you pickleball, or my wife's a kayaker. I know she's going to Stretch Zone. Whatever you do, if you're someone who's on their feet all the time, if you work in retail or you're teaching, you got to stand up a lot. You want to get your hamstring stretch. You want to feel better. And before we move on, I like what you talked about last week. When you walk out there, you've had your 30 minutes and you walk out, the burst of energy you get it. There's something really interesting about it, which I felt it too, obviously, because I've done it now. This will be my 4th year doing it, but it's definitely a game changer.
It's like an adrenaline rush. You just, you feel loose, you feel ready to go. You could equate it to like having morning coffee. It just
right
in a way that you needed it. So good stuff.
All right,
and then now, go ahead.
I'm just going to say the last point before we move on and get to the cornerbacks. The next week, so their 13th location in the area is Warrington. It opens up Monday, this coming Monday in Warrington. Yep. And all Stretch Zones are, by the way, are open 7 days a week unless they're holidays. And most are open till 8 p.m. And I know I've gone in there. Some of them open at 7 a.m. And I had a tennis match one time at like 9 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the Devon one a couple years ago. I signed up online. It took 20 seconds, and I went in at 7. I felt great. So there it is.
We definitely got to get you to the new one, because you have to eventually you have to go to every single Stretch Zone, Adam, in the area, in the Del Valle.
Yeah, I want to go to the Elkins Park one. That's where I grew up, and my dentist is in that area. So yeah, I want to do that. Go. So
that's the beauty, right, of the system-wide access, is that you can go into any single one, and they'll have your information on file.
That's right. They take the notes down. We've never mentioned that. Yeah, I do want to mention this before we move on to corners. So what happens is, as soon as they're done, they go over to the computer and they type in. So ironically, you mentioned it, when I visited my mom in West Palm Beach, my mom who just turned 95 recently. So when I went into that Stretch Zone, they had already seen what I did, because I actually asked. I said, I can't remember, what did I do the last time? They knew I had my quads done. I'm like, I'm not doing quads twice a week, so hell with that, because it's a challenge, as you know. So StretchZone.com, get your free 30-minute stretch. Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to the cornerbacks who have visited with the Eagles. Let's talk about Jacob Parrish, a corner out of Kansas State.
Yeah, this is a very interesting cornerback group. It's got better depth than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Parrish is going to be a day 3 pick. The thing with him is, because of his size, he's almost certain to be looked upon as a slot cornerback. Now, Trent McDuffie, who's also short, he's played inside or outside. Now, he's a better football player. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying that it's not always one size fits all, because it's sort of like this positional bias. If you're less than 5'11", you must be a slot corner. Not always. Isaiah Rodgers is under 5'11". He did a pretty good job last season as an outside corner.
Mm-hmm.
So Parrish is 5'9" and 3/4. Yeah, the arm length, he's under 31. That's small. The wingspan is short. Yeah, but the cool thing is he ran really well, 4.35.
Yeah,
his 10-yard split was really good at 1.51. Vert was 37.5.
Mm-hmm.
He's looked upon as a 3rd or 4th round pick, certainly looked upon as a nickel, but you never know. Again, why we bring this up about the nickel, and sometimes you never know how 32 teams look at it. Size, yes, he projects to be nickel. You never know what we've learned through Jeff Stoutland. What seems obvious is not obvious.
Yeah, I mean, the 4th and 5th rounds are really good areas to get yourself a guy who can play nickel. I mean, that's where Avonte Maddox
Probably
was
third or
drafted.
fifth. I'd say third or fourth, by the way. Third or fourth.
3rd or 4th. Yeah, Brandon Boykin, I believe, was a 4th round
Fourth.
pick. I mean, you
Yep.
can get yourself a good nickel in the 4th round, and that guy can be a real key contributor to a winning team. You don't normally draft nickels in the 1st or 2nd unless it's hybrid or unless something, unless like you guys got like a McDuffie, like you can also play him on the outside. You wouldn't draft purely a nickel
Right.
at that spot. But yeah, always good to have your eyes on them. Next guy, Adam, is a guy 2 teams I spoke to said they believe he will be a 1st round pick. Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky.
Yeah, I would definitely top 40. So he's 5'11 and a quarter. Average arm length for a corner is around 31. That's what he has. Smaller hands, ran incredibly well. 4.28 the combine is ridiculous. 10-yard split was 1.5. Vert was phenomenal. His athletic testing, phenomenal. Meets a lot of the analytical benchmarks that clubs have. Yeah, I mean, he's got it all. I mean, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he could run. He's been productive. Tape's good. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I don't care that he played Kentucky. That does, he still played in the SEC. So
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
No, I think here's why I would handicap it to be more likely 1st than early 2nd is because as far as elite, number 1 corners, we know Travis Hunter is going to be gone in the top 5, right? And then the next, Will Johnson will probably be the next to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to get into the mid to late rounds, and corner is a position that teams value. You need at least 2. You'd like to have 2 really good ones. And when you don't have 7, 8, 9, 10, there's some decent depth here in this draft, but it's not, you wouldn't say corner is the strength of this draft. I think guys like Hairston and even maybe Siobhan Ravel, who we're not going to talk, we don't know about any visits with the Eagles, but probably go higher because that run that I always talk about, once the top 2 guys start to go, teams get a little jittery about that position, and then you start to see a little bit of a run.
The knock on him is he's more of a zone corner.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't play man, or if they don't think you could play man, that becomes a problem. Then you become scheme specific, and that definitely will hurt you.
Right.
So if he doesn't go in the 1st round, that's probably why.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that here's what I'll tell you about this cornerback class. It's deeper than you think, but the problem when I say deeper, once you get to a certain number, there's something as you get deeper. There's an issue. You'll find something you don't like Darian Porter. He's fascinating. Eagles didn't bring him in, but his length is so ridiculous. How do you look at him? Because teams don't typically like tall corners like 6'3", 6'4". They like him around 6'1".
Right.
Porter's just under 6'3". But he's so long for corner. He's intriguing. By the way, he ran really well, so he's intriguing. Out of Iowa State, the Sirianni school.
Yes. All right, let's talk about Trey Amos out of Ole Miss.
Oh,
Trey.
yeah. Trey Amos is it. In my first mock, he was my runner-up for Izaraku. It was either or. Amos has got an Eagles. He fits. He could play him off coverage. He can press. He's long. Tape's really good. Really interesting prospect. I believe he'll go in the 1st round. Because if you look at the suspected drop-off at corner, Barron is really talented, but the problem with him is he might have to play nickel, although Greg Cosell told us with our Patreon folks on Tuesday night that there's plenty of tape of him doing both nickel and outside.
Right.
But if Ravel with him, it's real simple. It's level of comp. Morrison, injury history. Porter, is he too long? Although he's got a great athletic testing. Right. Denzel Burke, by the way, 2 years ago, people thought was a surefire top 15 pick. Might be a day 3 pick. So it just depends what you like and what you're willing to accept. But with Amos, he's just a really good prospect. I don't see him getting out of the 1st round. He'd be a perfect fit for what the Eagles do. In fact, Greg mentioned that when we talked to him about it, when we talked about the quarterback group. So Trey Amos makes total sense. 6 foot, 3/4 of an inch, 195, 4.43 is fine at corner. 10-yard split wasn't great at 1.6, but I don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Vert wasn't great. That's okay. He does meet other benchmarks. He's just a good football player, and again, probably 1st round pick.
Yeah, and plays in the SEC, so you're really not worried at all about the level of competition. I mean, again, it doesn't mean he's going to be great. Emmanuel Forbes played in the SEC, but you're just not worried about the level of comp or the caliber of receiver that he's used to going up against. All right, last but not least would be Jalen Smith out of USC. Interesting guy.
Yeah, he's another day 3 pick, most likely. Jalen Smith, by the way, it's Jaylin for those trying to get it right. The problem with him is short, 5'10 and a half, arm length under 30. Ran okay. 4.45 is not bad. 10-yard split, one grade at 1.6. That's not good, to be honest with you. But again, that's just a snapshot in time. He is a interesting player. Now, because of the length, where you're lining him up, is he just pure nickel or can he do other things? That's the question for Jalen Smith. But he's played both. He's played inside or outside, as I understand it. But he's definitely a day 3 pick. He's a depth piece. He's a developmental corner, no doubt. But you like his physical play. So we'll see what happens.
All right, great stuff. So between the interior defensive tackles, the edges, the offensive linemen, both guard, tackle, interior, and corners, we've gone through a lot of these visits here. And now it's, getting closer to the time for the Eagles to figure it all out along with the rest of the NFL. I hope you've enjoyed all the pre-draft coverage we're bringing you. Please continue to watch the Intel with Greg Cosell as he breaks down all the major prospects at each position. And please continue to watch Inside the Data as Sam Finkel gives you the analytic testing and measurables to go along with the production and how they compare to past first-round picks and top first 3-round picks and just drafted players in general. And then, of course, Andrew DeCecco doing the yeoman's work on Eagles and his own big board stuff. So we got the draft covered. And next week will be the all-exciting annual Inside the Birds NFL first-round mock draft. Can't wait for that. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.